Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first ever podcast from NorthIowaToday.com. I am your host, publisher, Matt Marquardt. Coming to you from the NIT newsroom, we're taking things up a notch here. You're not just going to be able to see great photos, watch great videos, read totally enthralling, awesome, in-depth stories. Now you're going to have to listen to my voice, and we're going to talk about some things. We're going to discuss the news. We're going to talk about the hottest topics of the day. And we're going to have some fun with this. So I'm looking forward to bringing you this podcast, news and entertainment formats, once a week. I hope you'll enjoy it. I hope you'll listen. I hope you'll visit NorthIowaToday.com often. And I hope you won't be a freeloader. I hope you'll buy a subscription like all the rest of the hundreds of other good people that do that. And support this watchdog media. NIT, it evolves, it adapts, it improvises, it overcomes. This is not the Globe Gazette. I am not John Skipper. I am not Bobby Fischer down at the radio station eating Twinkies. This is not KIMT. All three of those media outlets are on a death spiral to nowhere. NIT is on the fast track up. And this is more proof, the next step in NIT's ascent to the top. So I look forward to delivering this product, this podcast, as I'm calling it right now. It's news and entertainment. It's all opinion. If it's not a factual story, it's going to be all opinion. But I'm going to deliver some hard-hitting stuff. I'm going to speak my mind. And I've got plans after we perfect the podcast for more. So let's get started. And thank you again, everybody, for listening. But let's recap a few of my favorite stories from the last week. Did you read the story about the mannequin? The mannequin that was in the back of the Jeep, parked at Hy-Vee. The police came down. Someone called, said there was a child back in the back of the Jeep, and it turned out to be a mannequin. So the police and the fire came out, and what a scene that was. But obviously it was a harmless situation, and the fella who owns the mannequin, I guess you could say, told me he's removing the mannequin from his Jeep. It was just a weird thing, a fun thing he said he was doing. But there's consequences to everything, apparently, and his fun went too far, and our emergency responders had to come out. So that was an odd one. Now let's talk about something a little bit more serious. Anita Misich at the school. She's gone. Can you believe it? And lo and behold, the state called in, going to audit our schools. And what is the deal with Anita Misich and those cronies that she surrounded herself with? A bunch of lackeys, yes men and women who protected her. And everything the chatter is coming my way. Little fiefdom in there. Just a walled off, little kingdom running the Mason City schools, and people were getting rich over there. And the investigators could find some malfeasance. They could find some dollars that were moved around. At the very least, unethically. Maybe not illegally. Maybe no one will go to jail. Maybe they will. Maybe they deserve to go to jail. But I knew something was wrong at the Mason City schools when I got started in this news business 6 years ago. They wouldn't tell me anything. Nothing. No press releases. Wouldn't respond. Phone calls, emails. Went nowhere. I had to play some hardball with Anita Misich before she finally relented and invited me into her office. And I was told when I walked in the building, when I asked for Mrs. Misich, by her lackey, her crony, her underling, her coffee person, Ramona Jeffrey, that we refer to Mrs. Misich as Dr. Misich in this building. Well, I looked at Ramona Jeffrey and I told her, yeah, you can call her what you want so you can have your job, but I'll use the titles that I see fit. And we went in the office, myself and Ramona Jeffrey, and finally Anita appeared. You know, they make you wait, like she's Donald Trump. Make you wait, and I come in, and as long as I was willing to use the photo of her that she agreed upon, then I'd get on the press release list. So I had to play that game with her. Public information, by the way. But yeah, she's a game player, and she manipulates. That was my experience with her anyway. Now, did she care about the kids? Probably. I don't think she didn't care about the kids. You know, don't get me wrong, but I'm not shedding a tear that Anita Misich is gone. You know, I think Mason City can do better. And I think that with this school board, these people that have been elected, I don't see it really a chink in the armor with this board that we have now. And I think they're going to pick somebody good to succeed Anita Misich. And I think they're already cleaning things up in that administration building over there on South Penn. So, you know, expect better things from the Mason City School District moving forward. Now, what about this mayor down in Hampton, Brooke Bemler? Did you read that story? Published Wednesday. Mr. Bemler had taken to the pages of Facebook. He had written some, what I would call, aggressive posts. Something many might consider to be, you know, out of character for an elected official to write, especially in a public way as he did. But yeah, I got some calls about it, and you know, I had to look into it a little bit. I went to Mr. Bemler's Facebook page and I took a peek at what he had written there. He had written that this is all about Prestige, by the way, and really it's kind of a laughing matter because really, does Hampton have a chance to land Prestige Foods? Does Franklin County have a chance to land Prestige Foods? Well, sure, there's a chance, but monkeys could fly too. And it really doesn't look good because they don't have the infrastructure remotely in place for it. And they might never have it, and it would take millions and millions of dollars to set it up. But here they are, passing on June 9th, the Hampton City Council passed a resolution in support of welcoming Prestige Foods. You know, pointless really, but the next day, and there was people that had come to the meeting from Mason City, from North Iowa. They'd come to the meeting, voice some opposition, just voiced opinions like normal Americans should be able to do in a democratic society. And apparently Mr. Bemler, who by the way works in Mason City, he works at NIAC. He's a high-ranking individual, director of, what's his title here? He's the director of the Small Business Development Center at the NIAC Papa John. Apparently he drives from Hampton all the way to Mason City. But Mr. Bemler had some choice words for the people he's surrounded with every day when he's at work. He said, "We see where this is going. When haters from the north come to my adopted home of Hampton, Iowa, and try to tell me what to think and do, the outlaw Josie Wales comes out in me." Well, that didn't sit well with some. That's an aggressive way to label. That's a hateful label to call folks haters because they have an opinion that differs from yours, especially an elected official. And we might expect that kind of talk from Donald Trump, or who knows, Hillary Clinton might say it too. But, our small town elected officials should know better, especially an elected official like Mr. Bemler who claims to have an MBA from some college, university in the southwest of the country, excuse me. But he went on to say that we know who we are, and we don't need others to tell us what we already know. So apparently, Mr. Bemler knows it all about the pork plant industry, the meat packing industry, the slaughterhouse industry, and their obvious and well-documented effects on the towns in which where they land. The pork plant destroyed Albert Lea. They'll never pay off the infrastructure that they built up there. The citizens of Albert Lea are still paying for that up there. And the pork plant's been gone for a number of years. I don't know the specifics, but it's been gone. And they're still paying. And they held Albert Lea hostage up there. Just like I said in the end that Prestige would here. But for Mr. Bemler to label folks as haters because they don't agree with him is in the same vein as what was said by Ron Prestige, who called us kooks and racists, and our notorious councilwoman Janet Solberg, who chimed in and backed all that up. And really he's aligned himself with some real oddballs here. And the story that was written about him exposed what he did, and he's going to have to answer for that now, because it's fully documented now what he said, what he did, and he's going to have to explain this now when people bring it up. There's a couple other stories I wanted to talk about. I did a story on Rick Mathis. Rick Mathis, you almost have to pity Rick Mathis. Really, it's very possible that in 6 months or a year, you might see him in Menards working there selling washers and dryers. This guy maybe he's out to lunch, maybe he's just tone deaf, but he doesn't like me. He might not like NIT. Him and his dad, Dick Mathis, were coming to the council meetings for weeks, lecturing folks, standing at the podium, looking out at the crowd, making hand gestures, talking down to people. Well, lo and behold, they showed up at the last council meeting, 10 days ago, whatever. And they were staring at me, making facial gestures, waving at my camera, smirking. They came for a confrontation. It seems to me, as I sat there and glanced over and witnessed their behavior, that they wanted to have some words with me. I don't know if they're tying me to the anti-Prestige situation, or, as everyone well knows, I never took a public stand on the Prestige Foods debacle, as I would call it. But they were there, and they took to the podium, and eventually, as they have been lately, and were looking at me and speaking directly to me, waving at my camera, egging me on. So when Ricky got done at the podium, I did go to the podium. I introduced myself, and I asked Rick what his problem is, why they're continuing to complain about, mean emails, threatening emails, and whatever they allegedly get. Maybe it has something to do with their real estate business, or maybe their tenants are mad at them. Who knows? But they claim it's all about their tough support of the Prestige Food Slaughterhouse. But I called out both of them, and I called him a fool to his face in front of his daddy. And they both, they smiled. And he smiled at me after the meeting. He looked at me in the face, and I said, if there's something we need to discuss, we can discuss it. Wherever. Here, parking lot, whatever. Just discuss. In private. Well, he didn't take me up on it. Instead, he went outside and he huddled with Janet Solberg and Brett Schoeneman. Who knows what they talked about. But Rick Mathis, you'll probably see him down at Menards, sweeping the floor or something eventually, because it don't look good for him because he showed his hand. He needs the slaughterhouse to stay in business. It's evident. I know that the Prestige Foods development would have been a boom for NIT. There would have been stories every day. Every day a busload of Ukrainians pull into town. I'd have a great story. Can you picture it? They pull into the bus depot, wherever that is, get off and wandering around aimlessly, can't speak English, they're lost, they need help, they need social services. However they get to town, maybe they come in 6 vans, who knows? But people love to talk about that kind of stuff, so it would have been a good story. That would have been a good story. The announcement that a truck stop might get built on the south side at the intersection of 65 and the Avenue would be a great story. Probably would have happened. Prestige would have been the gift that kept on giving to NIT, but it would have been the greed in me if I had used that motivation to support the development. And remember, some of you may not know this, but when the announcement was made back in March 21st, I think, at the gala, the news conference, so-called, at the Park Inn where Branstad came out, I shook the mayor's hand, Eric Bookmeyer. I shook his hand. I congratulated him. I told him it looks like he solved Mason City's problems. And I congratulated him on the Prestige development, and I told him that I support, that I thought it was great, and I'm admitting my own ignorance, maybe not ignorance, but my own uneducation, my own lack of knowledge on what slaughterhouses do to communities. And I wouldn't support it now after learning. And I never supported the process that became evident. That wasn't evident at the press conference, but it became evident within hours when they put it on the first agenda for the next night, and it was going to speed through. And then I learned that Rick Mathis is on the zoning board that approved the zoning change from light industrial to heavy industrial on the south side of town where the plant was going to be built. So, but Rick Mathis evidently, and his daddy, who are played out, totally played out. Their website is circa 2000. Doesn't appear to have a whole lot of listings. They needed the Prestige Foods development to fill what rental units they have. They're landlords. They're landlords. I'm betting that Rick Mathis's number one skill in life is driving around on the first of the month to pick up his rent checks. What else is this guy good for? Probably not much. But he's got a big mouth. So do I, obviously. But he's got a big mouth. He's bold when there's police officers standing around and he can get away with smarting off. But he didn't count on NIT covering his bizarre behavior, by the way. When he stood at the podium for over a minute and 17 seconds, almost 90 seconds, stood there silent and was rude to Councilman Kuhn. He was rude to Councilman Lee, rude to Councilman Schickel. And he stood there and he predicted an economic winner for Mason City. Well, Rick, I got some news for you, buddy. Some of us run good businesses. Some of us work really hard at taking our businesses to new levels, to inventing new things. Hint, hint, this podcast. Working all hours of the day and night. You should try it sometime, Rick, if you're listening. If you have a computer that's capable of playing a video, that is. I'm betting in your office, maybe there's Windows 95, Microsoft style, those tan-colored computers that people use as doorstops now. That's probably what you have in your office, I'm betting. So yeah, it's too bad that Prestige won't be coming to town, or at least it seems that way. You just never know. You just don't know what's next. But yeah, there's other topics here I could hit. Let's read a little hate mail that NIT received. This one came out during the Prestige debacle. I call it a debacle because it was so ill-conceived the way this was presented to the people. It was rammed down our throats at the speed of light. Legally, and I don't fault the mayor. He's staying within the bounds of the law, but it's like reaching your hand under the lawnmower with it running full speed. He got caught, and the people rose up, and guess what? Now he's hiding. He's hiding out. He told me. He's not showing his face because he's hurt. He's beat up. If you would have just slowed down, but slowing down means people learn the truth. And it got uglier and uglier the faster people learned what was going on. But still, you could have took it to a vote. All these yes people, who I don't fault them. Heck, I still say, if the Prestige Foods development had been approved by the majority of people, if there were so many people in favor of it, and especially if a referendum was held, and it came out yes to build, 60-40, 55-45, something to build, I'd have backed it up. I would have backed it up. That's what the people want. Mason City wants Prestige Foods here. Great. Maybe that's not my personal choice, but the people have spoken. But the people didn't get to speak. Well, they did, but they had to go through 3 council people to do it. So anyway, let's have a little fun here. And I don't know why people send me these letters that have Max Weaver this, Max Weaver that. I get the hate mail or the, disgruntled. And they never put their name on these letters, by the way. Kind of a little pinch of Rick Matheson there. Not a lot of guts, but a lot of bluster. You want to talk about guts, I can show you a little bit about guts. But here's this letter from some moron. This seems to be the same person that writes this same vein of letter. Here it goes. Once again, Max raises his ugly head only to get it taken off point blank. He thinks he is an orator, but his blovations were again an array of pompous phrases across the landscape in search of an idea. He can't get over the wrongs he thinks were committed against him years ago, and he again ends up being an embarrassment to the community. Personal attacks, bombastic rhetoric, and threats that convince no one of anything. We went up to the professionals from Prestige after the council meeting and apologized to them for his behavior, which does not represent our community. And again, there are more people for the pork facility than against it, so he is blowing smoke for the naysayers once more. He is going to shit his pants when we tell him what is coming to town next. And then they close with capital letters. It says this: again, you lose! Shut up and stay home! I guess they're talking to Max and to me, because they lump Max Weaver in with NIT. Well, they do that because Max has been standing up to, some of these, I like to call them the elite, but it's kind of tongue-in-cheek. It's kind of a backhanded comment. These people aren't elite at anything other than shoveling food into their mouth and living off the backs of other hardworking people. These people aren't really elite, but I call them elite because it's just a slap in the face. But they equate Max Weaver with NIT for whatever reason they want to. I stood up to the elite. Max stands up to the elite. And so they send me these letters. And I get a kick out of them. I don't really publish them on NIT. And by the way, when you visit NorthIowaToday.com, go up to your address bar, type a / and then type in the word subscribe and hit enter. And then go to that page and actually subscribe to NorthIowaToday.com. Don't be a freeloader. You should subscribe. Especially if you've ever paid the Globe Gazette any money ever, you should be you should feel bad about that because they're not a real news source. They're bought and paid for by the Chamber of Commerce here in town, and it's run by the same group of cronies and lackeys that are pillaging this community. So, make yourself feel better by subscribing to NIT, the only true watchdog media in North Iowa, by the way, who calls it like it is. Here's another one. I know this is going longer than I thought it was going to go. But hey, no breaks here, no nothing. But here's a guy that's mad at me now. This guy is angry with me. I got to find the story here. Here it is. One hurt in Mason City collision was the story. I published it yesterday, Wednesday. There was a collision Monday at a intersection. Nobody knows how to drive anymore. Everybody's in a hurry. Everybody's so self-centered. But this kid, this 19-year-old man, he's a man now. He's 19, by the way. He's not a child. He can vote, I think. Can't drink yet. Maybe he does. But yeah, he rear-ended this young lady at the corner of Taft and 4th Street there by the Boulder Tap House. And she says he was going full speed. Her car is totaled. Cody Holzerland is his name. And driving like crap appears to be his game. Slams into the back of her Toyota Avalon, which she worked pretty hard to get, I believe. Wrecked her car, put her in the hospital. He was cited by Mason City Police for failing to stop in an assured clear distance. And I asked the police what happened, as I always do, and I, as always, published what they told me in my story. And then I happened to go by the victims. I call her a victim. Her car's wrecked and her body's broken. She's a victim. I went to her Facebook page, glanced through, and she had written some quotes that she was home recovering, and she had a sprained neck. And she said that he smiled and waved at her as he drove by, and he finally pulled over, and he told the police he wasn't paying attention. That's what she says. I didn't ask the police if that was in the report, but that's her quote. She was there. She's involved. I'm going to use her quote. I'm entitled to do that. This is the media. She was involved. If you can't quote someone involved in an incident, who can you quote? Is she lying? I don't think so, but who knows? Anyway, I run that story, and the dad. The dad's got to get involved now. Paul Halserland. Well, I don't know Paul Halserland or whatever his name is. And, I know a lot of people, but I don't know this fella. But he starts out, he left a nasty comment under the story. He says, your site is effing BS, he writes. He starts out there. That was his first foray into his attack mode. Then he sends me an email today. He says, all he did was write a title. It says, your site is effing BS, capital BS. Okay. And I says, thank you. Can you explain why? And he writes back, not long after, quote, because all you write is one-sided and negative, and it's BS, and you write shit about my kid. And sorry to say it pissed us off very much when you don't have the whole story. He spelled whole, H-O-L-E, by the way, among numerous other errors here. You don't have the whole story. Don't make up shit to make it sound good. Thanks, one pissed off father. Okay. So I write him back. I said, I would be very happy again to add your son's side to the story. The story as it is now comes from a police report and quotes from the injured party. I will add your quotes, side of the story, if you send it back here. Well, he fires back. Police report, I kinda don't think so, and you already made my kids look like shit, so fuck you, he says. And your site. Thanks again, and I'm going to let all my friends know what a POS, which you know what that stands for, site you have. Alright, dude, I mean, cool. Go tell all your friends about NorthIowaToday.com. Please, I beg you to do that. And go ahead and tell them how terrible it is. Because it ain't going to matter, dude. You're going to score me a bunch of new readers, and they're going to be addicted to NorthIowaToday.com like lots of other people are who say they hate NIT, they won't read NIT, and there they are on it every day, checking it, refreshing the site, refresh. That's what they do in the Globe Gazette newsroom, by the way. I got that straight from employees. John Skipper and his cronies sit in the newsroom with the NorthIowaToday.com homepage up, and they hit refresh over and over and over again so that I can lead their newsroom and tell them what's really going on. So anyway, he's not done. He sends me a Facebook message to my personal Facebook, my personal, not to NorthIowaToday.com Facebook, which by the way is facebook.com/NorthIowaToday. And if you haven't liked the page yet, you're missing out. You need to go over there. You need to click the like button and get with the program. So you can do that before or after you subscribe, by the way. Anyway, he sends me a personal message now. Now he's ramping it up. He says, if you're going to write shit on your POS site, and he spells it S-I-G-H-T. I don't know if he, graduated from Monroe Middle School. He's like 50 years old, and then, quit going to school or what. But he doesn't sound too bright. He says, get both sides of the story and don't fuck with my family, you POS fuck. You and have a great day, asshole, he says. And then he puts a mean mug face at the end. Oh, gosh, Paul, I'm really, I feel terrible for reporting a valid story, quoting a victim that was pummeled by your sons, a man, by the way, his car. Haven't heard from the kid, by the way, just the dad. I got an 18-year-old son, and I'm pretty sure he wouldn't rear end someone. And if he did, I sure as hell wouldn't be sticking up for him like this. I'll just call him person. I wrote it back. I said, I suggest you measure your words, my friend. And so I'm waiting now to see if he's got another one. I get these messages periodically, more often than you think. Somebody's mad, I report. Usually it's drunk drivers. A drunk driver destroys something or gets caught felony style, and why don't you cover some real news? Or they say they're going to come to my house and kill me or beat me up. Nobody's shown up yet. That's probably smart on their part, but... So yeah, that was a funny one. And I don't know, I hope that you're finding this amusing, because this is all in good fun. It's all opinion or fact. The stories are fact. My take on things, obviously my opinion, but... I've got a whole list of things I could have talked about here today. But I guess we'll wrap it up there. Maybe I'll have another podcast sooner than later. And because I got a whole list of things here. So a lot of things coming up. Maybe we'll talk about Hickey's Revenge. Hickey's Revenge. I also want to talk about the Globe. How they're going downhill. Thank you all once again for listening to our very first podcast. This will be an evolving product. There'll be some new twists, some new turns. I hope that you will enjoy it. I hope you will send in your ideas, suggestions. I'm always open to that. And don't forget to go to northiotoday.com and subscribe. It's very important that you subscribe. Keep NIT going, support. Show your support for Watchdog Media. We are not sold out to the Chamber of Commerce, Mason City Chamber of Commerce anyway, or any of these other entities that are corrupting our media, corrupting our governments, sucking away the life out of the people for their own wealth and personal gain. We will talk again soon. Thank you.